Hello everyone, it's me, Coffee Stitcher. It is, it's Sunday, that's what it is. It's Sunday the 10th. I know what day it is. How is everybody? Good, that's awesome to hear. I had a pretty good week, fairly productive. Considering we had no internet. So thankfully all of my charts last week basically were paper charts, because God knows what I would have done if they hadn't been, because I couldn't have accessed Dropbox from my iPad. We've got some Q&A, as always. We've got some surprise haul. We've got whip updates, and we've got next week's homework for Magical Stitches. So, we'll dive right in with the Q&A. It's a little chilly back here this morning. Becca L. says she loves my shirt. I think I was wearing my Baddies Disney Villain shirt, and wants to know where I got it. It was actually a Christmas gift from my husband. I believe it came from Target, but don't quote me on that. I don't tend to ask where he gets things, because then it feels like it takes the mystery out. Alright, Mocha. She says she's very confused about the term Hictits. Can you explain? So, backstory. Yesterday in the Hufflepuff chat, we were talking about one of the homework, the extra credits, which is about frogging, and working on a piece that you've never frogged. And we sort of came to the general consensus that if you hadn't secured the thread already, like you just realized, oh, I've gone one stitch too far, let me back up and then I'm done. If you haven't secured the thread, it's not really frogging. It's only when you discover later that you've got to take out a whole bunch, that's when it becomes frogging. And someone, I forget who, mentioned that in knitting, there's frogging and then there's tinking, which is taking out just a couple of stitches because you were off, and it's called tinking because that's knit spelled backwards, K-N-I-T-T-I-N-K. And since there wasn't a vowel in the first part of stitch, if you put it backwards, H-C-T-I-T-S, I started calling it Hictits. So that's apparently the new phrase for when you just have to take out a little bit and you're still on that thread, you have to Hictits it. So, Hictits. Susan H. says, can you please advise on what the difference is between the types of linen / even weave? For example, Belfast, Newcastle, Lugana. Many thanks in advance. Okay, so first off, you've got your even weaves. You've got your main ones are Lugana, Monaco, and Joblin. Joblin tends to be a little thicker. And they're like a polycotton blend, I believe. And then you have your linens. The names Belfast, Newcastle, etc., those actually refer to a specific count type. So 32, and it's specific to, I believe it's Zweigert. It's either Zweigert or Witchell. One of them uses British towns to name their different count sizes. So 32 and Belfast are the same thing. It's just Belfast generally refers to a specific brand. So you've got Lugana, Joblin, Monaco. There's also Jaslyn and Brittany, and there's a whole bunch of others, but primarily it's Joblin and Lugana, and then Monaco, and then you've got Linen and Ada. So I hope that kind of helps. Somewhere around here, I have notes on all of that. Where those notes are, I don't know, because those notes were made back when I first started stitching when I still lived at my parents', and I have moved thrice since then, So I'm not sure, and I don't remember which notebook I put that down in. Jenna, or Gianna, I'm not sure, Gorsuch asks, do you have a large stash of floss, and if so, how do you store it? I think I've got a fairly decent-sized stash of floss. I keep my DMC and any Weeks, Krynic, anything that can go on bobbins goes in just regular old floss, those little floss cases. I have a cabinet that I showed probably about 8 videos ago, that holds my bagged floss, so like my Gentle Arts, my Classic Color Works, my Rainbow Gallery. And I got that at Hobby Lobby. Jasmine Ravenclaw asks, is 123 Stitch your favorite place to order online? Occasionally for fabric, because they do stock the fabric flare, so I've ordered a little bit of fabric from them. I generally get my fabrics hand-dyed, so I don't tend to get fabric from them. But they're mainly my go-to for random Krynics or treasure braids that I can't get. Or sometimes, like, I needed Mill Hill treasures, and you know, something that I can't easily get at my L&S. So I guess yes, I did order from Stitching Bits and Bobs a time or two, but that, from what I understand, that one's really gone downhill, and I'm anxious about trying to order from anyone else. Okay, a couple of people asked about the DFW retreat. It's through Facebook. You'll have to join the DFW Stitchers group. It is waitlisted now currently, so it's full up. But it's in April, I think. It's either April or May. And it's in Grapevine, sort of near the airport. It's not the Great Wolf Lodge, though. I think it's the Embassy Suites. Don't quote me on that. I'm just going to show up when it's time. And assume that Katie can get me there. Which is funny, because I literally just work right over there. But, yeah. So, and Stitch Niche is sponsoring. I know Leslie of Under the Sea Fabrics will be there. I'll be there. As of now, I'm not planning to stay in the hotel because I literally live like 15 minutes from it. And I will sleep better in my own bed. But, we shall see. Christy Martin says she's a bit late to the party, so what is it with you and the Supernatural/Ouija board? What started it was, a couple weeks ago, someone asked, is there something I wouldn't stitch? And it stemmed a little because the Stitchonomy Drawloween had a pentagram, and that made me a little anxious because of religious iconography. And then Ouija boards, because while most of the time, I think when you're at a party with friends and you get out a Ouija board, someone is moving the planchette. I'm just superstitious enough that it makes me a little anxious. So the idea of stitching one, especially with the kind of luck I have, it just makes me more anxious. However, as I said last week, a lot of research and discussion went into it because I really like the design. And I'm significantly more comfortable and okay with it. But one of the big things is I grew up, I mean, I was born in 86, so I grew up in the middle end of the satanic panic of the late 80s, early 90s. So even though there's a lot of things from my very conservative upbringing that I've been able to shake, that's the one that I just haven't quite been able to. And while things like Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, whatever, I'm cautious about things that are more directly like Ouija boards or things like that. So, yeah. Brittany Lindstrom asks, how many total whips do you have, including the vault, and what do you do with them once you've finished? Most of them end up just going in a bag. I think I've got about 40 whips total, and that's not including UFOs. UFOs, I was actually looking at that the other day. I've only got a handful of things that are like truly UFO'd. I'm never going to go back to these. So, about 40, I think. I'm really, really trying hard to stick with going back to the whole don't start. 3 finishes means a new start. So I'm really trying hard on that. Lynn Dorney asks, who made the pattern Search the Sky? And that's Waxing Moon Designs. They do have an Etsy shop, so you may be able to get it as a PDF. But they're available in PDF and hard copy. Teresa Hartsong asks, what is your Instagram, Addie? It's Coffee Stitcher. I don't think there's any underscores. I think it's just Coffee Stitcher altogether. There may be an underscore between Coffee and Stitcher, but I'm pretty sure it's just Coffee Stitcher. I should probably know that. Patty Ernest asks, what fabric did I use on Emerald City? Did I do it 2/2, 1/2, or 1/1? And I used, it turns out I've been calling it the wrong thing. It's actually Stardust from Stephanie. It's primarily 2/2. The Krynic and the Treasure Braids are all 1/2, but there are 1/1 faces and a couple other things. However, the pattern gives you an option to do it 2/2. So if you don't want to do over 1, or you're doing it on Ada, where it would be significantly more difficult to do that, then you don't have to. So... yeah. So that is the Q&A. Alright, so I'm not going to take the time to show you all this individually, because that would just take forever. But last night, G's best friend stopped by, and she walked in with this whole bunch of stuff in her arms. And what it was one of her friends was clearing out their storage unit and said, hey, I've got a whole bunch of cross-stitch stuff. Do you want it? And she said, no, but I know someone who would. So I got this big stack of magazines. It's most of the cross-stitch and country crafts from May 87 through September, October 92. I know I've got several of them as well in some of the ones that are not here I know I've got. So I need to go through and mark them. And I was looking through them. There's actually a lot more good stuff than I really thought there was. But there were several other magazines, and this one, Cooler Studios, the 365 tiny cross-stitch designs. And I actually really like the mini sampler of the month that's in here. Several of these actually are really cool. But, oh, so, I got that. So that was my surprise haul for the week. Goo! Yeah. Okay. So, whip-wise, so I worked on, last week I was not feeling too hot on Sunday. So this is all I accomplished on Woodland Ferry, was this little bit here. So we'll keep working on her today. I'm going to keep on her wings. That's as far as I got. Alright, so for the homework, there was one minor change. Actually, there were two changes. So first I worked on the Leslie Tier Wizard of Oz, because it was my oldest and that I'd gone the longest without. And I also ended up using it for the one that would go on the cover of my autobiography. So I got 400 stitches, And then I used it for a little bit of an extra credit because we had stitched on something with the Great Outdoors. So it got probably about 500 stitches. So there we go. We've got Dorothy. She's got a face. She's got part of a blouse. She's got her hair. And I actually really, really enjoyed working on it. I'm glad that I pulled it back out. I'm going to get to use it again on this week's homework. And I actually enjoyed the Ada stitching on that. So I kind of, not that I'm going away from my linens and such, but I kind of think I want to try, because I think part of what turned me off of Ada was Picture This Plus, because it's so soft. I was splitting my needles, or the blocks constantly. And then I think some of it too was the only other Ada project I really had going was Lizzie Kate's Things Unseen, which, as we all know, for those who've been longtime viewers, was a frustrating go die in a fire piece for me. In fact, there were a couple of people who were surprised when I pulled it back out because they thought I actually had thrown it in a fire. So I think that may have been part of it. So I'm looking into possibly acquiring a little bit of Ada, and we'll see what happens from there. Itchy face. Sorry. Because I like this, because it's nice and stiff and nice. Which is funny, because I prefer my linens and my even weaves to not be very stiff, but I like having a stiffer Ada. Go figure. Alright, so then for our closest finish, I worked on it, or Pennywise and Georgie, and I got most of the balloon. I got about 2/3 of the balloon. So there's a chance, since I don't actually have all the materials to do the wings on Woodland Fairy, I may go ahead and work on this today, since it's for G's Christmas present, and at least finish the balloon, and then start in on a little bit more. Alright, then, for repeating patterns, I worked on quilts. Where are you, quilts? There you are. Which is my long dog. And I got, there we go. So I got several more, I've got 4 more hearts and several more pieces of the border, that little border done. So I do really enjoy this piece. Didn't fit anything this week, so it didn't get to come out and play, but that's okay. Alright, then, I actually changed my mind on the sound one, because I really wanted to work on this one. So I worked some more on Nevermore, and the reason I said that was, or the reason I gave that, hang on, I gotta look it up, because I want to make sure I give it correctly. That's Dropbox, that's not Facebook. Okay, I said I chose this one because my literary boyfriend George is a big prankster and created canary creams, which will temporarily change you into a bird. When I see the birds on the side of the house, I hear the first startled chirp of someone who has accidentally eaten a canary cream. So I worked on Nevermore, so I got more graves done. So worked on that. And then the bonus, we had to use a project that had either the title of the design or the designer's name contained RAB. So I worked on and this actually worked for both her name, Annie Belcher, and for her company name, Annie B's Folk Art. Count your blessings. So here we go. I got the second grass color done, and then I discovered I didn't have Weeks Dye Works putty. I thought I did, so that's going to have to wait until I go to my LNS next time. So then I started work on other parts. There we go. So that was the homework for the week. Then yesterday, because it's Saturdays, and I'm working on this on Saturdays until it's finished. I think it's going to take it'll take probably 3 Saturdays. I worked on the one that's the gift from my pseudo-grandmother. It's Love Grows Here by Elizabeth Designs. So I finished out the celebration assignment, extra credit assignment, and I got the bottom portion done. So that was exciting. So I'll start on the trellises, because I think each trellis is probably going to take a Saturday to do, a Saturday a piece to do, and then I think the top part will probably take a Saturday, and then we'll do the finishing. All right, so this week's assignments. So this week's assignments, there's 4. We're supposed to do 300 stitches on each, and then a bonus. So the first one is a gifted pattern. So I'm going to work on Nevermore, because Katie gave that to me back ages ago. Okay, sorry about that. All right, the next one, which was a little bit of a challenge to figure out, was to stitch. We learned that. No, pardon me. Dumbledore has skeletons in his closet, thanks to Rita Skeeter's book, and it all gets trotted out. So we either have to stitch 300 stitches on an actual skeleton, which I don't have, or on a fun skeleton in your closet. So what I'm going to work on is the Alforest Embroidery Atlantis. And the reason for that is that George and I discovered what caused Atlantis to sink. And it was a very ancient, very evil, dark spell. We discovered it while we were hanging out in Grimold Place in the library there. And we know it, we're not telling anyone, and we are not supposed to speak that we know it. So that's my skeleton. In charms, we learned the undetectable extension charm. So we have to stitch on a project that has something you would put in a bag to survive the elements. So I'm actually going to work on, where is it? Ah, here it is. On With Thy Needle, because it's got water, it's got food, it's got several things that I would want to have with me to survive. So here's where I am on it. So we will keep a-working. So it's been a while since I worked on this one. I'm looking forward to working on it some more. Then, we're supposed to work on the Black Family Locket is missing. It's a family heirloom. So I'm gonna do 300 on the Love Grows Here. So that assignment I'll work on Saturday. at least as of now. I am actually off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. So we'll see. I may end up getting all the homework done by the time I go back to work, which would be nice. And then for our bonus, in honor of Teddy, Lupin and Tonks' child, we're going to stitch on something they will need. So I'm going to work on Oz, because I would be giving Teddy a picture book copy of The Wizard of Oz. Because I'm me. Alright, so that kind of takes care of all of that. So that's it for me this week. Drop me some Q&A, because you know I love it. And I will see you all next week. Bye.